What if I told you that right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is filtering out thousands of sounds that could save your life, reveal hidden dangers, or unlock abilities that seem impossible? What if the difference between ordinary hearing and superhuman audition isn't genetics, but simply knowing how to flip the right switches in your mind? Meet Daniel Kish. He's completely blind, yet he mountain bikes through treacherous trails, plays basketball, and navigates complex urban environments with precision that amazes sighted people. His secret? He's developed human echolocation, so advanced that brain scans show his visual cortex lighting up when he makes clicking sounds with his tongue. Daniel doesn't just hear the world, he sees it through sound, with resolution that rivals human vision. But Daniel isn't unique. He simply accessed a capability that lies dormant in every human brain, waiting to be awakened. In the remote jungles of Malaysia, the Penan people can identify individual animals from their breathing patterns at distances exceeding 500 meters. They distinguish between the footsteps of family members from over a kilometer away, and can predict weather changes by detecting infrasonic shifts that occur hours before storms arrive. Western researchers initially dismissed these abilities as folklore, until they started measuring what these people could actually do. The results shattered everything we thought we knew about human auditory limits. Dr. Sarah Chun from MIT's Auditory Neuroscience Laboratory discovered something extraordinary when she began studying indigenous communities with reportedly enhanced hearing. Using advanced equipment, she found that their brains had literally rewired themselves, developing neural pathways that don't exist in the average person. The auditory cortex had expanded, hijacking areas typically used for other functions and dedicating them entirely to processing sound. But here's what shocked her most. These changes weren't genetic. They were learned. The human ear can theoretically detect sounds ranging from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. But that's just the beginning of the story. Your cochlea contains roughly 15,000 hair cells, each capable of detecting vibrations so subtle that they move less than the width of an atom. If you could harness just half of this biological machinery effectively, you'd possess hearing that surpasses most electronic equipment. The problem isn't your ears. It's your brain's filtering system. Every second, your auditory system processes millions of sound waves, but your consciousness only receives a tiny fraction of this information. Your brain acts like an overzealous security guard, blocking out most acoustic data as irrelevant noise. But what if we could train this guard to let more through? In 2019, researchers at the University of Toronto conducted a groundbreaking experiment. They placed volunteers in sensory deprivation chambers for extended periods, then gradually reintroduced specific acoustic stimuli while monitoring brain activity through real-time fMRI. What they discovered defied conventional neuroscience. Within just 72 hours, participants showed measurable improvements in frequency discrimination, sound localization, and even the ability to detect sounds previously below their hearing threshold. The brain had begun rebuilding itself around sound. Dr. Michael Torres, who led the study, observed something even more remarkable. Participants didn't just improve their existing hearing. They began detecting frequencies outside the normal human range. Some could hear infrasounds down to 12 Hz, the same frequencies that elephants use to communicate across vast distances. Others developed sensitivity to ultrasounds approaching 25,000 Hz, entering the realm typically reserved for bats and dolphins. We're not enhancing hearing, Dr. Torres explained. We're removing the limitations that evolution imposed for survival in a different world. This phenomenon, known as neural plasticity-driven auditory expansion, suggests that superhuman hearing isn't about having better ears, it's about having a better brain-to-ear connection. But the most extraordinary cases emerge from the medical literature, buried in reports that most researchers prefer not to discuss publicly. Take the case of Maria Santos, a 34-year-old architect from Sao Paulo. After suffering a minor stroke that damaged her visual processing centers, Maria's brain compensated by dramatically enhancing her auditory capabilities. Within 6 months, she could navigate her apartment building in complete darkness using nothing but ambient sounds. She could identify the emotional states of people 3 floors above her by the subtle changes in their footstep patterns. Most remarkably, she began reporting that she could hear the structural integrity of buildings, detecting microvibrations that indicated stress fractures invisible to the naked eye. When engineers tested Maria's claims, they found her acoustic assessments were 97% accurate in identifying structural problems that required sophisticated equipment to detect. Or consider James Mitchell, a former Navy SEAL whose hearing was permanently damaged by an explosion in Afghanistan. Traditional medicine offered him hearing aids and sympathy. But Dr. Elena Rodriguez at the Neuroplasticity Institute had a different idea. Using a combination of targeted brain stimulation and acoustic training protocols, she helped James's brain rewire around his damaged auditory system. The results were unprecedented. Not only did James recover hearing levels exceeding his pre-injury baseline, but he developed abilities that military tacticians found strategically invaluable. He could distinguish between different weapon types by their acoustic signatures from over 2 miles away. He could track multiple moving targets simultaneously through sound alone, even in chaotic battlefield environments. The military classified most of James's capabilities, but leaked documents suggest his auditory processing had evolved beyond anything previously documented in humans. These aren't isolated incidents. They're glimpses into a hidden world where the boundaries between possible and impossible become meaningfully fluid. Recent studies in computational neuroscience reveal why these transformations occur. The human brain dedicates roughly 41% of its cortical real estate to processing sensory information, but it dynamically reallocates these resources based on demand. When visual input decreases, auditory processing regions can expand by up to 400%. When auditory input becomes more complex or critical for survival, the brain recruits additional neural networks, sometimes hijacking areas previously devoted to language, memory, or even motor control. Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Tokyo's Institute for Advanced Brain Studies has pushed this research into controversial territory. His team developed training protocols that deliberately induce controlled auditory stress, forcing the brain to adapt rapidly to increasingly complex acoustic environments. Participants learned to process layered soundscapes with dozens of simultaneous audio streams, distinguishing individual conversations in crowded rooms, identifying specific mechanical problems in running engines, and even detecting emotional states through microvariations in breathing patterns. The results suggest that with proper training, humans can develop auditory processing capabilities that rival sophisticated AI systems. But Dr. Tanaka's most provocative findings involve what he calls transsensory hearing, the ability to perceive acoustic information through non-auditory channels. Advanced practitioners in his program report sensing sound vibrations through their skin, detecting acoustic patterns through peripheral vision, and even processing auditory information during sleep states that enhances waking performance. Brain imaging confirms these reports aren't delusional. The subjects show increased connectivity between auditory processing centers and regions throughout the brain, creating neural networks that don't exist in ordinary humans. We're witnessing the emergence of a new type of human sensory system, Dr. Tanaka noted in a recent interview. One that integrates acoustic information at levels we previously thought impossible. However, the most intriguing cases come from unexpected sources. In 2023, researchers documented a phenomenon among long-term meditation practitioners that challenges our understanding of consciousness itself. Advanced meditators, particularly those specializing in sound-based practices, demonstrated auditory capabilities that border on the supernatural. They could detect heartbeats from across large rooms, identify specific emotional states in others through barely perceptible acoustic cues, and most remarkably, seem to process acoustic information from sources that shouldn't be audible to humans. Dr. Lisa Chun, a neuroscientist at Stanford who studies contemplative practices, discovered that experienced meditators show brain activity patterns during deep states that resemble those found in animals with echolocation abilities. They appear to send out subtle acoustic signals and process the returning information, creating a form of human sonar. The implications are staggering, Dr. Chun explained. These individuals seem to have developed capabilities that exist nowhere else in the human species. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from emergency response records. Throughout history, certain individuals have demonstrated impossible auditory awareness during critical situations. Tsunami survivors who reported hearing ocean whispers hours before waves arrived. Earthquake rescuers who locate trapped victims by detecting heartbeats through tons of debris. Search and rescue specialists who find lost hikers by following acoustic traces that electronic equipment can't detect. These abilities emerge most commonly during high-stress situations where survival depends on enhanced perception. The brain, faced with life-or-death circumstances, apparently unlocks auditory capabilities that remain dormant under normal conditions. Military research programs have attempted to weaponize these discoveries. Classified documents suggest several nations are developing acoustic enhancement protocols for special forces, creating soldiers with superhuman hearing abilities for reconnaissance and tactical operations. The success of these programs remains officially undisclosed, but leaked reports indicate remarkable results. Meanwhile, the medical applications are already transforming lives. Clinics specializing in neuroplasticity-based auditory training report success rates exceeding 80% in helping people develop enhanced hearing abilities. Patients with various forms of hearing loss, auditory processing disorders, and even complete deafness have shown dramatic improvements using techniques derived from studying individuals with naturally occurring superhuman audition. The protocols typically involve graduated exposure to complex acoustic environments, targeted brain stimulation, and intensive training in sound discrimination and localization. Most participants show measurable improvements within weeks, with some achieving capabilities that exceed normal human ranges within months. But these developments raise profound questions about human enhancement and the future of our species. If auditory capabilities can be dramatically enhanced through training and brain stimulation, what other sensory superpowers lie dormant in human neurology? Vision, touch, proprioception, even time perception, all depend on similar neuroplastic mechanisms that could theoretically be enhanced beyond current limits. Some researchers argue we're approaching a new phase of human evolution, one directed by conscious intervention rather than natural selection. Others worry about creating cognitive inequalities between enhanced and unenhanced humans, potentially fracturing society along lines of sensory capability. The ethical implications are staggering. Should parents have the right to enhance their children's auditory abilities? Should enhanced hearing become a job requirement for certain professions? How do we regulate capabilities that blur the line between human and superhuman? These questions become more urgent as the technology becomes more accessible. Consumer devices claiming to enhance human hearing through various training protocols are already available online. Brain stimulation equipment, once restricted to research laboratories, can now be purchased by anyone. The tools for human auditory enhancement are moving from controlled scientific environments into the general population. Yet the most profound implication may be philosophical rather than practical. For centuries, humans have accepted certain limitations as immutable aspects of biology. We can't see ultraviolet light, can't hear ultrasonic frequencies, can't detect magnetic fields or infrared radiation. These constraints seemed as fundamental as gravity or thermodynamics. But the emergence of superhuman hearing suggests that many perceived limitations are actually imposed by neural software, not biological hardware. If our brains can learn to process acoustic information beyond normal ranges, what other impossible capabilities might be achievable through proper training and understanding? The individuals developing these abilities aren't mutants or genetic anomalies. They're ordinary. People who've learned to access extraordinary capabilities that exist within normal human neurology. They represent a preview of human potential that most of us haven't even begun to explore. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this research is its democratic nature. Unlike genetic enhancements or technological implants, auditory enhancement through neuroplasticity appears accessible to virtually everyone. The brain's capacity for adaptive change doesn't discriminate based on age, background, or initial ability level. Studies show that even people with significant hearing impairments can develop enhanced auditory capabilities that exceed those of individuals with perfect hearing. The key isn't starting with better equipment. It's learning to use existing equipment more effectively. This suggests a future where superhuman abilities aren't the privilege of the genetically fortunate or technologically enhanced, but the result of understanding and training. A future where the question isn't whether you can develop superhuman hearing, but whether you're willing to invest the time and effort required to unlock capabilities that already exist within your brain. The science is clear. Superhuman hearing isn't science fiction. It's an emerging reality that challenges everything we thought we knew about human limitations. The only remaining question is whether you're ready to discover what you're truly capable of hearing. The extraordinary may be far more ordinary than we ever imagined. It might simply be waiting for us to listen.